Sorry, this is a bit long. I know this isn't a therapist's office, but this has bothered me for a long time, and I wanted to get it off my chest. This happened in June 2018 in Portland, Oregon. I understand I acted like an idiot in this situation. I have become much more observant, cautious, and somewhat paranoid since then. I went dancing with friends and was drunk by midnight. Unfortunately, this was back when I had little money, and I realized you could save money by eating very little before going out, and it would take far fewer drinks to get drunk. So I was so drunk, I barely remember my friend ordering me an Uber home. My phone was dead, of course. I vaguely recall them helping me into the car and telling me to get home safely. I don't remember greeting the driver or the first minute. But soon after getting in, he asked how my night was and if I smoked. I was thinking about the bed, so I slurred out that I sometimes did. He then offered me a joint. This was the first moment I got nervous and began paying attention. I tell him I'm exhausted and ready to call home. He said something about it being an India-based joint which made for great sleep. Once again, I say something not precisely like no, but not a yes, which he takes as a yes, I'll take that joint now. Once again, I'm still drunk enough that I can barely see straight or speak clearly. So when he says, okay, well, I have to cancel the ride quick because I can't give it to you while I'm on the clock, or something to that effect, it takes me a second to realise how dangerous that is. And by the time I start to say something, he has cancelled the ride and pulls over. We were just east of the Hawthorne Bridge, I think, and it was secluded. Some empty parking lots, a closed auto body shop, and no one in sight. It's starting to hit me. I'm now in the car, not with an Uber driver, but with some stranger. I can't call anyone, and he's trying to give me weed that could have anything in it. For the next minute or so, we're pretty quiet, or I can't remember any small talk he tried to make because I was beginning to panic. And every time he handed me the joint, I would take fake hits, just breathing it into my mouth and not into my lungs. I felt tired, clumsy, and weak. That drunk where you're almost nauseous, and I knew I couldn't do anything to defend myself. I remember being fixated for a moment on the fact that I didn't even have a pair of keys to protect myself with, as my building used fobs for just about everything, and I didn't take my mail key with me. As I'm freaking out, I look up to see if this guy is noticing, and I make eye contact in the mirror. He was staring at me, but I couldn't read his expression. Finally, he says something along the lines of, well, let's get out here. I tell him I'll call another Uber to get home, thinking it might even be safer to walk at this point, and he says, no, I still have your address. I'll just take you home. For a moment, I was relieved. I guess I wanted to believe him so badly that I would get home safe. I felt him. I tried to calm myself down, thinking he hadn't done anything threatening. Maybe he was just your typical stoner guy and I was overreacting. At this time, I lived on the PSU campus in downtown Portland in the city's southwest area. He is driving me north on the east side of the river. There are several bridges to our left, and as he keeps moving north, he has several opportunities to take an exit to hop over the river and get me back downtown. He kept skipping them. We kept passing bridge after bridge that could get me home. Up in northeast Portland, some large industrial areas can get very isolated at night, and many forests surround Portland in general, so I knew he could have me in a secluded area quickly. After he passes like the fourth exit for a bridge, pretty sure it was the Broadway Bridge, I've been racking my brain for a way to make him take me home and say something to the effect of, hey, my boyfriend is waiting for me at home, which was true, though I said it in a very meek way. My driver said nothing but took the next exit for a bridge and hung a giant U-turn that started taking me home. Even as we're heading south on the west side of town, I'm still shaking and have my hand on the door handle, thinking about just hopping out at a red light the closer we get to my apartment. My phone is completely dead, and he still has several chances to hop onto nearby highways and speed out of the city. We're getting pretty close to my apartment now, and I'm once again trying to convince myself I'm being paranoid about some stoner that can't navigate the city. However, a few minutes before, I was so scared I was crying. So once we get about 2 blocks from my apartment, I lie and tell him it's easiest to stop here, and he can let me out. Again, he doesn't say anything but does slow the car. I'm flooded with relief and even feel myself smile, but when I open the door, it's locked. I try to lift the lock mechanism manually, but it won't budge. I look up at him instinctually to see what's up, and he's got his head turned almost entirely toward me, shoulders still facing the road, smiling at me. The worst fucking smile I've ever seen. It looked so mocking. and it just did not reach his eyes at all. I just started crying and asking him to open the door. I was so freaked out and still very drunk, and thank God he did. I will never forget the sensation of vulnerability, not just being drunk in his car with no way to contact anyone, but even as I got out of the car, I kept feeling like he would somehow grab the back of my shirt and pull me back in, as silly as that sounds. When I got home, I found out my boyfriend had gone out with friends last minute and wasn't even home. He wouldn't have known till much later if I hadn't gotten back safe. The next day, I convinced myself I was freaking out over nothing, which I realised still could be the case. But in my gut, I had genuinely felt in danger the night before. Technically, this guy could have been harmless, but I still think I should have texted my friend and had her report him. The big thing that made me think of this was recently hearing about how Ed Kemper, co-ed killer, would go for practice runs, picking up hitchhikers and seeing if he could get the passengers, potential victims, to trust him, or how far out of his comfort zone he could push them without them saying anything. This guy wasn't Ed Kemper, but I hate wondering if that night was a practice run for my Uber driver.